Top 5 old school coaches who'd be killing it in the NIL era. And these are guys who killed it anyway. But as far as right now.
Is Bobby Collins on this list?
From Georgia? No.
No, from SMU?
No, he was not.
Okay.
He was not. I thought that one was a little too on the nose.
Hell, he'd be great at it.
Yeah. No. I did not.
Ron Meyer?
Yeah, Ron Meyer. No, Ron wasn't really all that good at it. I think that's the problem. But no, or he was just too reckless with it. But no, these are 5 coaches who, and again, one of these guys kind of falls in that category, so maybe I would, but he's at a bigger school. Number 5, Jackie Sherrill. A&M is
Damn, there's 4 guys ahead of him?
Yeah. A&M essentially adopted Jackie Sherrill. They just dusted it off. And their playbook from what he was doing back in the 80s and applied it to now with the even more money that they have and prestige. But Jackie Sherrill, very famously, the Aggies gave Eric Dickerson his Trans Am. So they were...
You still didn't get him.
Yeah. They were doing, name, image, likeness for any, but I think Jackie Sherrill would be he'd be one of the ones who I don't think would, as the rules change, have said anything, I don't know what we're doing in this era of college football. He would have just kind of run right with it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, he was running with it before you could run with it.
Absolutely. Number 4.
You have a response, Craig?
No, that's more your era than mine as far as Jackie Sherrill goes.
Yeah,
so if you want to
right.
expand, I think you'd be better suited to do it than me.
Yeah. A guy who is not in either of our eras, Craig, Darrell Royal. He was already crushing it at Texas anyway, but can you imagine what he could have done with it?
Yeah, guys like Darrell Royal, the great Darrell Royal, Bear Bryant, probably Bud Wilkinson, which are all of them very old school. They weren't, again, we don't know about any improprieties. It seemed like all of them did what they did and did it based on the rules of the NCAA. What they did was compile people, players. They would have 140 guys on scholarship. Now, you have that now with not scholarship. They would recruit somebody so they wouldn't play, for example, for somebody they had to play and beat. That's what they did. So you're right. They would handle this very, very well. Like Texas Tech and their 85 scholarship players, and now it's going to be like 25 or so walk-on players. That's basically not that they were paying them, but that's kind of the old school way of, let's have our 85 and let's also take 30 more so we won't play against them.
Yeah, they would have, instead of, an NIL guy, they just have an accountant all ready to go. Like, here's the salaries for everybody right here. And we're going to roll that out. They could have done that day one.
I don't think UT was ever, I don't think Bud Wilkinson and I don't know Bear Bryant, they never were involved that I know of. This is, again, off the top of my head, has been many, many years in any kind of NCAA violations.
And sometimes that has to do with influence as well. When they could get a letter from the NCAA and say, hey, we got this letter. Do you guys know that you sent that to us and not somebody else? And our mistake.
I'm gonna bail you out a little bit. I know what you're saying, but what they did was compile numbers and numbers of players on scholarship so nobody else could have them.
And look, I will give Texas credit on this. For the most part, there are some pretty glaring times where they haven't. But for the most part, because they are so big, they don't have to really, when it comes to athletic department scandals, sweep things under the rug. They'll go, okay, well, this guy's out. This is done. Move on, because they felt confident enough and able to.
When they've confronted something, they've usually handled it quickly.
There are
Look
some
at Chris Beard.
Notable excerpts, but yeah, for the most part, they usually do handle it.
I think that comes with the security of knowing that you're going to be fine regardless.
Yeah,
because
exactly
you're so
right.
big and powerful
Great
that,
point.
like, if you're a Baylor or a Houston or a whoever, that you're like, okay, well, this could ruin us.
Yeah.
This could, because it actually ruin us. So let's sweep this and hope that this does, and then that spirals and roller coasters into a bigger thing than it doesn't need to ever become. But I think that's part of it. Is just like, okay, so Darrell, I don't want to say this, but so-and-so is cheating and we got to fire him. Oh no, what's Texas going to do? Are they going to be able to find a head coach that wants to,
yeah.
So there is that security element to it.
Number 3, Steve Spurrier. Really, I think that he would do well really now in just every kind of aspect of coaching, other than the fact that really towards the end, and look, in the NFL, he wasn't great at this. He didn't like the schedules in the NFL where guys were getting in the office at 5 a.m. and breaking down film and giving.
Steve was getting up to have a piece of toast, read the newspaper, to go play golf.
Yeah, he had to get his 18 in beforehand.
And he could play.
And look, he was able to do that at Florida because his assistant coaches were Bob Stoops and guys like that were about to be head coaches and roll in and kind of sprinkle his dust on it. But he was, to me, and I say this knowing that I used to have a shirt that was really rude to Steve Spurrier, that as far as the executive new era head coaches, he was well out ahead of that on a lot of people. As far as, I'm the CEO of this team, I've got good assistants, I'm going to sprinkle my dust on this where I need to, but I'm going to be the face of the program. We're going to roll this out. That's one of the reasons that made the Gators so good there, because he was able to kind of be out in front of that, where it used to be every coach had to be like down in the, in the dirt, drawing up plays when times got tough. He was confident in his staff and his ability to go out and be the face of the program, was really good at it. And you throw NIL in that, that's kind of what you need from a head coach now, with NIL and fundraising, which since Steve Spurrier left, Florida has not been really good at building and fundraising things. They've fallen behind because he was better at that than even Urban Meyer was.
Well, Urban had success.
On the field, but as far as being the CEO of everything, that was more a Spurrier thing than an Urban Meyer deal. Number 2, the guy who built Miami, Howard Schnellenberger.
Oklahoma legend, Howard Schnellenberger.
Yeah. Howard Schnellenberger would have done great with it. And, of course, Miami's trying to dust off their old playbook as well. And for both Miami and A&M, hasn't worked out in the first 2 years of the NIL waterfall so far. But Howard Schnellenberger would probably be doing really, really well right now.
I really liked him. He, again, just, God, what he did at Miami was phenomenal. And winning that national title that launched him into excellence for a long, long time. I had him on one time when he was at Oklahoma back in mid 87, 88. I can't remember. John Blake was maybe right after him. He was just a guy sitting down with your uncle to have a conversation.
Yeah. Of course, his plan recruiting wise was pretty brilliant in that we're going to own Tampa South, and then everybody else who comes from north of there is going to be begging to knock in the door here, and that's what happened there at Miami.
He changed college football, and maybe, I hope he's known for this, and Bowden obviously, is that a lot of the talent in Florida was getting out of the state, and they shut down the state like you have to.
Yeah.
What was that like at the time when he stepped away from Miami? Was that even that big of a deal?
Well, I mean, he was replaced by...
It was right as they were about to explode.
Dennis Erickson.
Yeah.
No. It was Jimmy.
Jimmy, and then Dennis Erickson.
Yeah, Dennis Erickson, yeah.
So it worked out well for Miami, but he had gas in the tank, and he stepped away after 83. And
wasn't he forced out? Was he forced out? Or was that when he was at one of the other schools in Florida?
No, because he had kind of helped launch that one, but
I don't think he was forced out of Miami.
Or he was maybe or maybe it was a professional job. And I'm sorry that I don't know that. I should, but
I do know that Miami constantly wrestled with the fact that they'd become known as this football powerhouse full of guys who partied all the time, and they were trying to be, like this, prestigious academic university. Which they are.
But imagine telling them now, like, what Miami's reputation would be for the most part would be like their nightmare, I guess, because it's all about the swagger and the chains and the, all that kind of stuff. So, not exactly what they envisioned.
Well, he was replaced by Jimmy, who was at Oklahoma State, then went to Miami.
Miami was always, to me, I mean, if you look at it, they were, as a football team, a very accurate reflection of the community around the University of Miami.
Yep.
They were such a good reflection of that when it came to the players on the team, where they came from, their backgrounds and all that. But the university, especially in 1983, was probably like, I don't know if we were comfortable with this, but that's...
You know where he went after he was at Miami, had success? Louisville.
Okay.
Went to Louisville,
And number 1 on this list, a guy we had on the show just a few weeks ago, who runs an NIL collective now, made some kind of joke about it with us about how it wouldn't have worked back in his era. But Barry Switzer would have done really, really well with this.
I think Switzer could recruit today. I think he could coach football today. Again, it would be a wear because of his age. I love the
Well,
guy.
but if
I
you
love
took
his interviews with us.
46-year-old Barry Switzer
no, my God,
and plopped him down right now.
It would be amazing.
Was he the only one on this list that actually got popped for?
Well, Jackie Sherrill did.
Oh,
Sherrill
yeah,
did, yeah.
Of
Jackie
course he
Sherrill
did.
did.
Yeah.
Jackie Sherrill did. And so, but yeah, and look, Steve Spurrier, they had the Tank Black scandal while he was there at Gainesville, but that was one of those things where like, well, it's not his fault. You know, the kids were just dumb and took
Royal
rights for an
didn't.
agent. Yeah.
Royal
Royal
didn't.
didn't.
Sherrill did.
I don't think Schnellenberger did. I don't think so.
I think later on in his career, he went from Miami. He was going to go to the USFL, Paul, by the way, and your love of that sport.
Oh, yeah.
And then ended up, that didn't work out, so he went to Louisville. I think he got into sideways
I just
somewhere.
blinked on Sherrill being on the list already because, that's obvious that he had gotten popped too. But, Switzer, given free reign to basically just do whatever he wants to, would have absolutely crushed it and would be fascinating to actually see that nowadays. Like somebody like him. I mean, we've got various characters, but, I mean, there's a few of them on this list right here. Spurrier, modern day, would be interesting as all hell. Switzer certainly in this landscape would be pretty effective and pretty successful, I would imagine.
I think I want to Schnellenberger. I don't see anything with that, so I want to make sure I clarify that. I thought it might have been at Florida Atlantic, but it was not.
No, I'll tell you this. Going back to Spurrier for just 1 second, I think Jimbo Fisher could learn a lot from the Steve Spurrier school of, backing off the reins a little bit, and look, he won a national title at Florida. Urban Meyer won 2, but he reinvented that university and reinvented the SEC a little bit at that time because
he did
because what he was doing and was the CEO.
He was on the early part of their surge. Florida, then Tennessee, of course, won it, and then we know what happened in the 2000s.
Yeah, the Big 12 had an opportunity to try and keep hold of that a little bit with Oklahoma winning in 2000. You had Texas in 2005, but Oklahoma, they won a couple more during that early part of the stretch and not let LSU, but LSU wins one. USC had their say as well, but once LSU won that one, and then here came Urban and the Gators, and then eventually Saban, and, you had sprinkling of Auburn in there, and now Georgia here lately, but yeah, that was the turning point, really. If you look at it, was at early 2000s. That's when it, all kind of flipped because it was a mix there, late 90s, and then, Oklahoma's title, USC's titles, and then since then,
UT's
title, and then since then, really, it's been the narrative that we're living with now that is not just a narrative because it's got 15, 20 years of backing to it at this point of titles. So, yeah, but I'd love to have seen Spurrier, in this day and age, Switzer too. That'd be really fun stuff.
Those are some personalities right there. Every one of those has a different personality. We've had Jackie Sherrill, in fact, with us on the show, and of course, Switzer's fantastic to get.